Welcome to the Money Matters EmpowerHer Podcast, where we're redefining what financial independence looks like for women. I'm your host, Donna Cates, and each week we'll dive into powerful stories, expert strategies, and practical tools to help you take charge of your financial future. The women sharing their journeys here aren't just telling stories, they're change makers. Their experiences, strategies, and financial outlooks carry real power to inspire transformation in your own life. Whether you're planning for retirement, navigating a divorce, or simply looking to build your wealth with confidence, this is your space to grow, learn, and thrive. Let's get started with today's episode. Welcome, everybody, to Money Matters EmpowerHer Podcast, where we have honest, uplifting conversations that inspire women to grow their influence, navigate life's pivots with courage, and build a life and wealth that reflects who they really are. So, I'm your host, Donna Cates, and today I'm really honored to be joined by Maria Natapov. She is with BH2O, Certified Coach Parenting and Step Parenting Coach. So, Maria's doing some extraordinary work in the world, and I can't wait for you to hear her story, how she got here, and what she's learned along the way. So, it's all yours, Maria. Share with us kind of the heart of it all. Take about 90 seconds to tell us what it is you do, and more importantly, why you do it.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm going to try my best with 90 seconds. I'll be honest, those are big shoes to fill for me. So, the way I got into this work, I'll start there, is I am a child of divorce. We were also immigrants. My parents had the most contentious divorce, all the things that we all probably tell our clients not to do, that maybe most people now know not to do. Back in the day, they were doing it. And shortly after we immigrated, my dad left. I was raised by my maternal grandparents. We were from a completely different culture, totally different language, entirely different values, child rearing, all the things. And my mom was MIA for my formative years because she was trying to get on her feet and support the family, the four of us, by herself. So, probably not surprising because my grandparents, who adored me, kept me sheltered. And I ended up going into an emotionally and physically abusive relationship for my first relationship. Now, of course, hindsight's 2020, and I can see all of the ways that those dots are connected. But back then, it was a shock. I had no idea what I was in for. I had no idea what was going on. And 16 years later, I realized through a therapy session, an unexpected therapy session, that's what it was. I was essentially effectively a statistic. And I was shocked because I thought I had done a great job keeping myself in the know of best practices and how to keep a relationship healthy. So this was a total surprise. It was excruciatingly devastating. And when I finally got the courage to leave and started to untangle everything, I met my now husband. He had a daughter. Despite my best attempts to persuade him not to date me because he needed a more stable role model for her, he didn't listen. He felt that all of my past experiences set me up in a better position than I was giving myself credit for to know how to care for a child. So I became a step parent, and 5 years in, she revealed she was being abused and neglected by her bio mom and stepdad and came to live with us full time. There was a custody trial that lasted a year and a half. That was 7 years ago. A year and a half ago, I adopted her, but it's been a lot, needless to say. So I say what got me into this work is that I've truly lived it on all sides. And my hope is to support families through these major life transitions like separation or divorce or perhaps the loss of a spouse to recognize that even though those circumstances are very painful, often devastating, and a whole host of, upheaval on every front, that it is, though, nonetheless, an opportunity for us to build even more solid and nurturing foundation to move forward towards our brighter future. And anything and everything we want or dream of or hope for truly is available to us. But often we have to take a long, hard look in the mirror, confront some things, really, really look at what has been serving us and maybe being courageous enough to recognize what has not and being willing to let that go and really build that path forward. How did I do?
You did fabulous, and there's so much to unpack from that. So, and we need to get rid of the 90-second rule. That's just insane for anybody. But let me share with you a couple of key takeaways that I heard. Number one, none of us know what we need to know, or we just don't know because how many people have lived your life experience? Very unique for you. What I found really compelling was the fact that your future spouse, when you met him, you were protecting his child by saying, ooh, I might not be the best role model. And having that foresight to know that, ooh, maybe I'm not set up for this, but him recognizing in you that you were exactly the perfect role model because you had already lived it all and were the person that he was falling in love with, right?
Yeah.
How huge. I mean, what a significant compliment that is. So yay. And the other thing that I'm hoping our listeners hear is that, Maria didn't just end up here by accident. She did the work. So tell us a little bit about the work that you did on yourself. What were the resources that you used that put you in a place where you could recognize a better potential soulmate, not being attracted to somebody, with that abusive personality, and just, the things that you did for yourself.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I often wonder how it is that I got so blessed to be connected to so many amazing resources. And I really think there's a point in my past relationship that I just was devastated. I felt so lost because he had narcissistic tendencies. I won't say he's a narcissist. There's been no diagnosis. And this is just, from my understanding from this work that I do, what that looks like. And he had a lot of those kind of similar behavior patterns. However, it's very disorienting. And it was, a long-term kind of shifting of my reality. And so I realized, which I hear is so common from those who have been in similar types of situations, you start to feel like the bad is outweighing the good, right? You're starting to recognize those patterns of the love bombing and then, the pulling apart and you question your reality. And so in those moments, I remember I started to feel physically ill. And that was the biggest kind of scared, I guess, for me that woke me up to, hey, this is serious. This isn't just maybe it's happening, maybe it's not happening, because that was kind of where I was is what is real? I had a big question of what is real? Is this my imagination? This feels really real. I feel like this is true, but right, I started to doubt myself all the time. And so what I started to notice was I started to have a strong desire to listen inward because I had been so disconnected from my intuition, which actually I now realize had always been very strong. And it started, of course, in my young years and largely was probably influenced by my former culture of, Russia. I mean, there's a lot of control in that regime and a lot of manipulation and propaganda, et cetera, and lots of fear tactics. And looking back on it, I think that some of my parents and my grandparents' behaviors was probably shaped by that as well, right? Because you can't live in a culture like that and come out unscathed. So, and I think that's another piece that a lot of times control is something that is usually, it starts out being external to us, but then over time, the more we're exposed to it, especially if we're living with it in close proximity, it starts to become internalized. Right. It starts to become our own voice, and we don't even recognize it often. And so that was what I started to awaken to. And I can't tell you that there was one clear, specific moment of what it was. But when I started to have the courage to ask the question, I didn't hear the answer right away, but I started to hear a whisper of what it was that I was needing and the truth that was deep within me. And so through that, I think is where the path started to reveal itself. So, as I said, I've been really fortunate to have been exposed to a variety of incredible mentors, resources, teachers, healers. And I'm a lifelong learner, so I naturally have a proclivity for that. And everything that I have become a practitioner of or am certified in, I've also invested in personal support with these mentors. So this was, I didn't just learn it. I also took part in actually getting their personalized guidance a lot of times. And I would apply it to myself, and I would often rope my husband into it as well, just to have a partner in arms and really kind of, I guess, fine tune our dynamic. We've been through a lot, as I've mentioned briefly. And again, I really think it's important to create a culture within a family, right? That's really what resonates with me is and sticks with me is that because the 5 people we surround ourselves with, we're kind of the sum of those individuals, right? They're the ones we spend the most time with. So I knew if I'm going to create lasting change, if there's things that I'm noticing that have not been serving me in my own life or in my relationships, perhaps, or the foundation I've built within my family or within my home, I needed to enroll people who are in my home, in my family, to also be open to it. So that's really been, I think, instrumental as well in cultivating a new way forward. And we now have systems in place. And largely it's because, again, I've invested in the support, not only in the education and the certifications for myself.
Wow, a lot of meaningful lessons that you had, and I know that's shaping the way that you're showing up for everybody else today. So let's talk about impact and how it is that you're empowering other co-parents, step parents, in being the best selves that they can be. What kind of what sets you apart from what other coaches might be doing?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Well, I think one, as you pointed out, my life experience, not many have necessarily been through all of those facets. So I think my deep empathy from having lived it, right? And also having, I remember hearing at one point one of my mentors saying, you can't teach from your wounds, you have to teach from your scars. So I think that I definitely have distilled all the lessons, all the gems. I call them, we get to have our own personal gems when we go through some of these seemingly nightmarish experiences and are able to completely get to the other side. We actually get all of the gems and the goodies to take with us that are uniquely ours. So I think I have that. And then largely, I think it's because I yearned so badly for really comprehensive systems as a kid because I felt the ownership. I remember early on, like I need to impart this wisdom to my caregivers, right? So it's like they're bigger shoes to fill, especially with my former culture. We're from Russia. Education is considered like the tippity top most important value. And so they had to be validated. I couldn't just bring them something, I had to bring them something really comprehensive and solid. At least I felt the ownership to do so. So I think I was always looking for very thorough resources. That would get to the heart of the matter. So I think between the different modalities that I'm certified in and that I'm a practitioner of, that's what sets me apart. I do want to make sure that I am very clear. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a clinician. I am a coach. I want to make certain that I make that very, very clear for anybody who is listening. But I think, mindset, skills, and the framework, specifically BH2O, what I absolutely adore about that framework is unlike typical coaching, it's very structured. The curriculum is very structured, and there's a strong reason for that. It's because that is what is the fastest route to true transformation. And transformation involves creating a new system and a new way of being within the dynamic of a relationship. So, for folks who are in conflict of any sort, whether they're in conflict and they know they want to stay married, or whether they're in the process of getting divorced, or possibly trying to create co parenting and workability and peace past and beyond their divorce, or maybe even are building a second family and have new family members joining them in the form of, a step parent or recoupling, or perhaps even that step parent is bringing their own children into the situation. For all of that, there, in order to have workability, we need systems, right? We know that in the business world. And so when we look at our family structure and the way we function as a system with clear expectations, clear goals that are shared goals, our shared values, and clear boundaries, clear roles, then suddenly we can create that workability because there's a lot of intention. We're really operating from our why, we're operating from our values. And then when we create a system based on that, steeped in that, we also can ensure that it will grow with us, right? Because our day-to-day changes, expectations change, seasons of life change, our children grow, right? Our even our relationships evolve. And so we need something that will grow with us, which is exactly what this curriculum allows access for, which is what makes me so excited about it. But it's also beautiful in that it's hands-on, it's not directive, it's very much a process of discovery for the participants, with myself as the guide, ensuring that they get to where they want to go, and supporting them to do so. And it's really for all of the different types of learners, be they auditory, visual learners, hands-on learners. They have access to all of that. So it truly meets them where they're at. And I think through that, it becomes like something they can live into.
And the thing that I'm hearing is all of this is work.
Mm.
So you're taking on people, you're working with people who want to do the work. I mean, they have to want to do the work. Otherwise, you can have all the structure you want, but if they're not willing to do the work and show up and all of those things, it doesn't really serve anybody. So that's very interesting. So I'm curious to hear who are the ideal people to work with you, because I'm sure there are some people that want the answers but aren't willing to do the work. So how do you discern who those people are, or who are you calling to your practice?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I think to your point, we don't always have to know the how, right? I think that's where a lot of us get tripped up. We think we have to have it all figured out. Or I think where also sometimes we get tripped up is, oh, I just have to wait for this one milestone to be complete, or for this time, and then it'll get better, or and then I'll be ready, right? And the truth is we're never going to be ready. We're never going to feel like we're ready, right? Until we take that step. But to your point, yes, it is work. There's no delusion that this is, a cakewalk, or that we have some sort of a magic, fairy dust wand that I'm just going to wave and everything is going to be better. However, the good news is, I think a lot of times I hear concern like, well, I'm 100% on board. This is amazing. I need this. We need this, but I don't know if my co-parent will even give it the time of day. I don't think I can, make it work. I don't think they're going to participate. And the good news is they don't have to.
Mm.
Um, they are welcome to participate. And even if they're not fully pulling this information towards them, it only takes one person to lean in. And moreover, even if their co-parent will absolutely not hear of participating in a program like this, they can work with me one-on-one, and it will still create massive impact for them, and that peace and that prosperity and longevity that they're looking for their family, of calm and intentionality, and an actual structure and system that truly supports them well beyond their divorce. Because I think another common misconception that I hear quite often is, well, these parents are stuck being, working together until the kids are 18. But the reality is, no, they're not. They're stuck working together for the rest of their lives, because really they want to be likely part of, their children's lives. They want to celebrate holidays together, or at least have peace around the holidays to be included, right? They want to be part of the career milestones and academic milestones, and then eventually personal milestones when they're building their family and whatever that looks like. And the truth is they won't get that opportunity if they are causing a lot of chaos for their children, because estrangement is a very real epidemic that often doesn't reveal itself until years and years, if not decades down the line, when the children are older and they've discerned their experience. And sadly, some of them may choose, you know what, my life just has more peace when you're not around. And it's heartbreaking, and it doesn't have to be that way. I think that's the key. It doesn't have to be that way. And I think many parents often also mistake their children putting on a brave face or out of fear trying to keep it together as they're fine. And
Mm.
they are not fine, because imagine what a toll it's taking on you when you're an adult.
Right.
You
Mm.
know, and it can be easy to think, well, children don't have the responsibilities. They don't have to provide financially. They don't have to figure it all out. But the reality is, yeah, you have the skills to do that. They're still learning the skills, and at their whatever developmental milestone they're at, it's still a lot. They're noticing the tension, they're noticing the upheaval, they're feeling the uncertainty, they're feeling the bouncing around between homes and, schedule changes, etc. And now, if the parents have conflict between them, those kids are absorbing all of that too. And that's actually, it's specifically, we know from research that the thing that is the biggest predictor of how well children weather is not the divorce or separation itself. It is exposure to conflict, and specifically the severity of conflict and the duration of the exposure to said conflict. So
Wow.
if we can reduce that, or better yet, eliminate it, we truly have an opportunity to create healthy, resilient kids who now are stronger for having gone through this life event, rather than being negatively impacted by it for the rest of their lives, which is so often, unfortunately, the case.
And I can't help but to imagine that anybody that participates in this kind of structured learning, they're just setting a better example for their children as well. So alleviating the conflict and the chaos, but just showing them what an acceptable situation looks like versus living in the chaos.
Absolutely, because another big piece that so many of us I hear are people pleasers, right? Or are
Mhm.
walking on eggshells because we're just trying not to rock the boat, or because we're terrified of what that would mean. And what kind of an example are we setting for our kids? Is that what we want for them? Because whatever we're doing is their becomes their blueprint for how they behave, for how they handle conflict, for how they navigate everything in life, be it their relationships, etc. So if we're hoping they're going to build fulfilling, true, meaningful connections, conflict is not a bad thing. I think that societally we're afraid of it and we judge it and we're like, this is bad, this is terrible. It's not terrible. It's a wonderful opportunity to clarify what's important to us. It's a beautiful opportunity to gain insights about why does this matter so much to us? What's underneath that? Why are we so upset by this circumstance or situation? So we can get more crystallized in, again, what it is we're really needing, or what our values are, or what our beliefs are. And it's a really beautiful opportunity to walk through a challenging situation collaboratively with another person. That brings incredible and a way to move forward, and more understanding and empathy for each other and appreciation for each other, but only if we're willing to actually confront those things and do that work, right? If we put our head in the sand, if we run away from it, if we're deluding ourselves saying, oh, we're just trying to keep the peace, but meanwhile we're just avoiding it, right? Or stuffing down the emotions, pretending they don't exist, we're not doing that. We just robbed ourselves of that beautiful gift and opportunity to grow, to learn, and to create a meaningful connection by totally sidestepping it, right? And moreover, and I used to tell this to my daughter all the time, unfortunately, when we push our emotions down or ignore them, they don't stay down, right? If we think about people being oppressed throughout history, eventually there's a revolt, and our emotions are no different. They're going to get our attention one way or another. If we don't create the intentional space and time to allow them to give us those insights, they're going to make themselves known at a time that is not convenient or pretty, right? So again, I just feel a responsibility to share that with people, because I think sometimes those who aren't in this work, they might not realize, but it's not going to go unnoticed. There is no, stuff it down. That's just not a long-term solid plan. So how can you model for your kids and set themselves up for a more peaceful, more aware, more kind future right? By walking your talk now, right? By showing them how to do that now. And it's okay not to have all the answers. It's okay to be
Mm.
scared and do it anyway.
I would love for you to make this distinction for me too, because you mentioned it earlier. You're not a counselor or a clinician. Talk to us about who would be benefiting from the coaching that you're doing versus somebody that truly needs mental health
Yes. Thank you for
guidance.
asking. Yes, thank you for asking. So yes, to your point, mental health guidance or somebody who's also looking to better understand their past, somebody who's looking to heal from their past, be it from their relationship or within their relationship, or maybe even with their former partner, they would need to definitely go and see a therapist, right? Because that is that kind of work. In BH2O and the framework that I teach and take people through, we're looking forward. So we're literally, it is strategic. And even though there is some psychoeducation that is part of this work, it is just to create insights to allow us to understand what kinds of systems we need to build and how we need to go about building them in order to truly protect our children's emotional well-being and to provide them with that emotional security, right? To be free to love both parents, to be fully able to enjoy time with both parents and not feel anything about it, like that it's hurting the other person's feelings or that it's taking away from them or that God forbid, and this happens unfortunately more frequently than we realize, kids feel like their head is on the chopping block and they're going to be replaced, right? So, and we don't want them to feel that way. That's just way too much, and it's not even true. So that's really what this framework is for, is the workability, right? It is to for those who are looking to understand, okay, if I'm triggered, what is it? How can I step into my power? How can I gain valuable insights from that experience to understand what I'm needing and how can I meet that need myself? And therefore, how can I more quickly de-escalate from that trigger or maybe even prevent it altogether, right? So that because we know, okay, we don't have, as we said, we don't have magic fairy dust. We're not going to change the co-parent, right? If they're going to be pushing buttons, if they're going to be doing their thing that they do that drives you crazy, well, let's just assume they're going to keep doing that forever, right? Because we can't change other people and we don't know. So, but you can change your response.
Mm.
You can change how you look at a situation. You can change, and not jump to conclusions maybe, and instead approach them with curiosity to understand, right? If we can look at that person instead of an obstacle as somebody who also has needs and challenges of their own, well, how can we get curious about what's going on for them? Because maybe we'll be able to see something that they don't see. Or maybe we'll be able to suddenly see a way to resolution that wasn't available to us before because we're looking at it with new eyes or we now have new insights about the situation. And that's really what this program is about, is that kind of thing. It's about being able to access actual strategies that you can lean on, that you can develop within yourself, essentially new habits, right? New ways of looking at things, new ways of talking to yourself as well as behaving in a
Mhm.
situation, even if that means I have a rule that I'm not going to respond to a text message at X until it's whatever time of day, right? Perhaps. Or maybe it's I'm going to read it and then I'm not going to respond for 10 minutes. And then I'm going to see if I'm in the right state or if I have the right words to respond in the way that I would like to, right? Whatever those are just examples I made up, but whatever that looks like for each one of us, it truly is an opportunity to work in, even if in a shared container, by getting individualized support to move us towards being the true role model we want to be for our kids. But more importantly, the benefit that we gain is we get to have more peace as well. And it doesn't just stay in the co-parenting dynamic or in our family, it goes everywhere with us, right? We take it to work, we take it to the grocery store, we take it to when somebody's cutting us off on the highway, we take it to our workplace and with clients and colleagues, right? We just get to be a more peaceful, fluid, flexible human, and therefore we get taken out less by life and life events, and we live in alignment with our own values. And so it creates a lot more peace and satisfaction overall.
Mm. And just hearing you describe that is relaxing to me. So
Mhm.
I can imagine the how empowering it is. Well, I know everything in the world seems to be shifting so fast, and just everything's changing, changing, changing. Tell me, what are your thoughts about where you see your industry, or specifically this type of coaching? Where do you see it going in the next 5 to 10 years? What might we be looking forward to?
My hope is that this is going to become the norm because it is absolutely critical and it is such a key component, I think, of supporting families. It's a kind way to support families. The goal is that they become autonomous, so they no longer depend on referees to settle their disagreements. So it essentially, yes, certain things may require going to court or maybe even lawyers or definitely mediators, right? And perhaps even judges, but not everything. And right now, what we're seeing a lot is that the system is being clogged up by these cases. And a lot of it is just emotionally driven, or because there isn't a good structure for how to exchange information, and people are feeling slighted and frustrated and left out and totally dysregulated because, of course, it's their children and their time with their children that are at stake. So naturally, any parent would go crazy if that wasn't protected, right? Or if they didn't feel that their child's emotional well-being is the utmost priority or whatever that is. And so this is really about creating for them a way to move forward where they're able to hear each other and work together as co-CEOs in the business of raising their kids.
Ooh, I love that.
Mhm.
And as you were talking, Maria, I couldn't help but to envision, this divorce process. Divorce is such an ugly thing. And I mean, you just hear the word and cringe, but just the whole litigation process, everything about it is messed up. But gosh, wouldn't it be awesome if we could go through this process in more of a collaborative process, whether you call it collaborative law or not, you're just cooperating as you're working through the process, the legal, because it is a business contract. You've got to dissolve the business contract, right? But then part of that being this natural path into your training, that it's not like I've heard people being required to go to co-parenting or working with a co-parenting coordinator, because they have to. There's high conflict. But wouldn't it be awesome if people were doing this just because it was the smart and healthy thing to do?
Yes, exactly. It would be wonderful if it was folded in, right? And it's not that those other professionals aren't needed. There's still room for them. There's
Mhm.
still cases, but now their time and energy is a lot more focused and we can work. I mean, we definitely hear the saying it takes a village, but I think
Yes.
often don't necessarily apply it to situations like divorce. And if ever there's a time that it takes a village, I think for sure divorce or a separation, a major critical life event that impacts every aspect of our lives, I think certainly warrants the village approach. And yeah, because the therapists have their own skill set, as we've discussed, that they are bringing to the situation. And so do the coordinators, so do the mediators, so do the attorneys. And then the BH2O coaches are the ones that really create and support parents to create the structure that is designed by themselves, looking at what is truly necessary and available to their own unique family and circumstances, and then building a way to actually move forward towards that.
Beautiful. It sounds wonderful. We need more people to know about you and the work that you do. So for that, for our listeners who feel, just inspired or want to learn more about the work that you do, how to work with you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, they can go and take a look on my website, which is synergisticstepparenting.com, and that's two P's. And then they are welcome to email me at maria@synergisticstepparenting.com. They can also find me on LinkedIn, Maria Natapov, and on Facebook, which is also Maria Natapov, and they can DM me. It doesn't have to be so heavy, but yeah, I mean, taking that first step often can feel like the hardest thing, but I also would love to, for a moment, step onto my soapbox and remind people that, a lot of times by the time we actually think we need resources, it's too late because we don't have the capacity to go and do our research, to understand who's available and who are they. Do we align with them? We haven't had any conversations with them. So I am a strong proponent of do all your research, have all your phone calls, find out well before you need it. And if you never need it, great. But if you do need that support, you already will know who are your people. Because the click and the personality fit, I think, are one of the most critical components when you're dealing with such an emotional event. And ensuring that your philosophy is in alignment, that you feel comfortable talking to this person, that they're not going to steamroll you, but actually will listen to you is so important. And that's, I think, the importance of talking to people like you and people like myself well before we're ever needed, because then at least you've already identified who are your people and you already know who are not.
Just having a game plan. I love that. Love it. Well, I want to
Absolutely.
thank you so much, Maria, for being here with us today, sharing your story, your wisdom, and the heart, just all of the heart. So I know that the women that are listening will take away a renewed sense of, I hope, responsibility for their families, regardless of what that structure looks like, and a sense of possibility. So we thank you again for everybody that tuned in. Remember that no matter where you are in life, it's never too late to redefine success on your own terms and build a life that genuinely reflects your worth for both yourself and your family. So until next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Money Matters EmpowerHer podcast. I hope today's conversation left you feeling inspired, informed, and ready to take the next step in your financial journey. Remember, building wealth isn't just about money, it's about creating a life that aligns with your goals and values. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with the women in your life who deserve financial empowerment too. Until next time, stay confident, stay empowered, and keep building the life you want.